So let's talk about building an investment portfolio. Now, I know that can sound a little intimidating, but think about it like this. You would never, ever build a house without a really detailed plan, right? Well, your financial future deserves exactly the same kind of care. So today, we're going to grab our hard hats and start drafting your personal investment blueprint.
The first thing we all just have to accept is that markets, they're gonna do what they're gonna do. They'll go up, they'll go down, and that volatility, that's something we just can't control. But the most powerful tool you have isn't some crystal ball for predicting the future. It's having a solid, well thought out strategy. That's your blueprint, and that is where you have all the control.
So here's our game plan. First, we're going to draft that blueprint by asking some really foundational questions. Then we'll choose our building blocks, the assets themselves. After that, we'll get into the architectural masterstroke of diversification, move on to the actual construction and maintenance, and finally, we'll see how this whole plan can adapt with you throughout your life.
Okay, let's start at the very beginning, the foundation. Before an architect lays a single brick or pours an ounce of concrete, they need to know exactly what they're building and why. It's the exact same thing with your portfolio. This first phase is all about defining the purpose of your whole financial structure. These 4 questions are, quite literally, the bedrock of your entire plan. First up, your goals. Why are you even building this thing? Is it a towering skyscraper for retirement, or maybe a small garage for a new car fund? Second, your time horizon. How long do we have to get this built? Third, your risk profile. Just how sturdy does this structure need to be to handle some financial storms? And finally, your circumstances. What's your budget for all the materials and labor? Let's just zoom in on that second question for a second. Time horizon. It's really just the length of time you plan to invest. If you're building for retirement that's, say, 30 years away, you have a lot of time to work with. You can use materials that might be a little more volatile, but have much higher growth potential. But if you need that money in just 2 years, you're going to choose much safer, more stable materials. Time really does dictate the design. And here's something that's absolutely crucial to remember. A blueprint is not a prison. Life happens, right? Your circumstances will change. A great financial plan, just like a great architectural one, is a living document. It has to be strong for sure, but also flexible enough to adapt to whatever life throws its way. Okay, so we've got our foundational plan in place. Now it's time to head to the supply yard and pick out our building materials. In the world of investing, we call these your assets. And just like in construction, different materials serve very, very different purposes. We can basically group our materials into 2 big categories. On one side, you've got your growth assets, things like shares and property. Think of these as the steel beams that let you build tall and really reach for those high returns, even if they sway a little in the short-term wind. And on the other side, you have income assets, like bonds and cash. This is your solid, concrete foundation. It's maybe less exciting, but man, does it provide stability and a nice, steady income stream. Of course, every building material comes with its own properties and potential weaknesses. You have to be aware of the risks. There's market risk. That's the chance the whole environment just gets stormy. There's inflation risk. Think of that as a slow, creeping erosion that can weaken your foundation over time. And there's manager risk, which is basically like choosing a construction crew that doesn't perform up to snuff. A good architect understands and plans for all of these. And this brings us to what is probably the single most important design principle in our entire blueprint. This isn't just a nice little feature, it's the core concept that makes your entire structure resilient. This is diversification, and it is your secret weapon against all those unpredictable market storms. This quote just gets right to the heart of the whole philosophy. Forget trying to predict when the rain is going to start or stop. That's timing the market, and it's basically impossible. The real goal is to build a structure that can stand for decades through all the seasons. That's time in the market, and you get there through smart, durable design. So how do we actually do it? Well, you wouldn't build a house using only steel or only concrete, right? You use a mix. First, you diversify across asset classes, using both those growth beams and those income foundations. Then you can diversify within those classes, using steel from different manufacturers or concrete from different suppliers, so to speak. You can even use different construction crews or fund managers to build different parts of your structure. The key takeaway is no single point of failure. All right, the blueprint is done, the materials have been chosen. It is time for construction. But building is really just the first step. A truly great structure requires ongoing maintenance to make sure it stays true to that original design for years and years to come. So here's the problem that our upkeep needs to solve. Over time, as markets move around, the actual shape of your portfolio can start to change.
Some parts might grow way faster than others, causing the whole structure to kind of lean to one side. This is called drift, and it can slowly but surely pull your portfolio away from its original intended design. So let's say this is your original blueprint, a nice balanced design. 60% in growth assets, that's your steel structure, and 40% in income assets, your stable foundation. Everything is perfectly aligned with your goals and your risk profile. Looks good. But then the stock market has a fantastic year. Your growth assets do so well that now they make up 70% of the portfolio. Now the building is taller, sure, but it's also less stable. It might be way riskier than you originally intended. The structure has drifted from the blueprint. So the big question becomes, how do you perform the maintenance? How do you gently nudge that structure back into its original intended shape without having to tear the whole thing down and start over? Well, you've got three main tools for this job. First, you can take any income that gets paid out and use it to build up the part of the portfolio that's fallen behind. Second, if you're adding new money, you can just direct all of it to that underweight section to beef it up. Or third, you can trim a little bit from the part that's overgrown and transfer those funds to reinforce the other areas. Simple as that. This whole process of rebalancing, it isn't a sign that you failed. It's actually a sign of good ownership. It's the regular, disciplined upkeep that ensures your portfolio continues to perfectly reflect your blueprint, keeping your risk and return profile exactly where you want it to be. And that brings us to our final section. We've designed the structure, we've built it, and we're maintaining it. But what happens when your life changes dramatically? Sometimes you don't just need a little upkeep, you need to pull out the original architectural plans and see if they even fit your needs anymore. Major life events are the perfect triggers for a blueprint review. You know, getting married, having a child, buying a home, starting a new business. These things can completely change the purpose of the structure you're building. Your needs are just different now. When these big moments happen, it's time to pull out the plans and ask yourself, does this design still work for the life I'm living right now? So, here's the crucial takeaway from all of this. Your portfolio isn't just a random collection of numbers on a screen. No, it's a structure. It's something you design, you build, and you maintain over your entire lifetime. It is the living blueprint for your financial goals. So the only question left is, are you ready to pick up the pencil and be the architect?